Hi, it's Jack Ellaby from Friends of the Lakes. This is the 6th video in our series focusing on hedgerows. Today we're at Strickley Farm just outside Kendal, where Megan Gimber, the hedgerow national expert for the People's Trust for Endangered Species, is talking and hearing from James Robinson here at Strickley Farm about the business benefits that hedgerows give to his farm and the wider farming community.
So we're here at Strickley Farm to talk about some of the amazing benefits that hedges can bring to farms. And I think some of the well-known ones are about pollinators and how they can improve in arable systems. Obviously hedges are fantastic places for pollinators to live over winter, nest, breed, and provide food, obviously, while our crops aren't in flower. And that pollination service is really important, obviously, for the seed set and then the overall productivity of that farmland. But of course, hedges are also really important in non-arable, in livestock farming. And we're here at Strickley, which is a dairy farm. So it'd be great to hear a little bit about how the hedges benefit your farming.
Yeah, well, thanks, Megan. I think at Strickley we're really lucky that we've got a lot of the old ancient hedgerows still intact and still there as a managing functional boundary as well. So 97% actually are the ones that were first drawn on the 1850s, just sort of generalised mapping really of what was done in this area. They're still here, so they're still there as a managed hedge as well, which when I was younger I used to really annoy me really that we had all these tiny little fields that were hard to manage and everyone else seemed to have big, easy to manage fields. But now they are very much a benefit to us in our system.
So obviously the bread and butter of pasture farming is the grass. Do hedges have a positive impact on grass growing up here?
Oh, absolutely. If you imagine how wild, we're nicely sort of sheltered down here where we are stood now, but if you imagine today, it's been obviously very windy. If we were stood on top of a hill or on the side of one of these banks where there was no hedge there and it was whistling all the way along, we would feel the cold, we would feel buffeted about by the wind and the rain. The animals, they would feel exactly the same. So we need those hedges just for shade and shelter really for the cows, without all the other benefits that they bring.
Yeah, of course. And shade and shelter, fantastic for animal welfare, fantastic for animal health, and that obviously has implications on the bottom line as well and how profitable those animals can be. So of course with climate shade, both shade and shelter are going to be increasingly important for livestock systems. How is that going to impact your livestock with it?
Yeah, I think we're already seeing sort of extremes of weather. A couple of days ago, it was up to 30 degrees. We're back down in the teens now, of course, but then it is Cumbria. But we've got to kind of prepare for many more of those days really in the future. So rather than having an odd day at 30 degrees, even in Cumbria, we might be at 2 or 3 weeks of 30-degree temperature in 25 years' time. Well, if we're wanting a nice, big, bushy, wildlife-friendly hedge that's going to produce loads of shade and shelter for those animals, we need to get those in the ground now.
Absolutely.
We need them chance to sort of establish to grow big and stuff, and maybe even lay them once and then grow big again. So we need that sort of nice sort of thick hedge, nice and high, nice and wide, that's going to give plenty of shade and shelter in behind as well. And that's not just for the sun, it's also for the wind and rain that we do obviously get. And then that helps us extend the grazing seasons as well. If we can have that shade and shelter available in September, say, when we get those horrible back-endish sort of nights, whenever we get up for the cows and it's probably dark, 5:30 in the morning in September, the cows will always be behind that hedge, if it's been a wild night. You can see where they've been stood, but it's like a roof for them then. So if we can provide all that sort of shelter in the environment, in the sort of farmed landscape.
And I guess back in the 30-degree days, what was it, last week, we could pretty much guess where the cows are going to be, and that's whatever shade they can find.
They can, yeah. They're not daft. Cows know exactly where they need to be, and if we can provide them big hedges all the way around the field, or on multiple sides anyways, depending on how we're managing the hedge in terms of hedge laying, if we can provide multiple areas where they can go, then they can choose where they want to go, you know. And if there's a nice, you know, if there's a nice hill in the middle of it, then they might be on top of that hill for some of it if it's a nice breezy day. But they might also just want to be around, mooching around in that, you know, in the shade of that big hedge.
Absolutely, and of course hedgerow trees can exaggerate some of the benefits of hedges, particularly once you've recently laid, or if you've got a hedge that's in a short part of its cycle. Hedgerow trees can then sort of offer some of those shade and shelter.
Yeah, that's it. The shade
offsets.
will be far bigger and far you know, further into the field as well. So that's something that we do. We always do leave hedgerow trees when we come across them, or if there isn't any, then we will try and plant some in as well. Different species as well if we can.
Yeah, and of course with climate change, it's not just going to be extra heat waves and periods of drought, but we're also going to have periods of time where it's wetter. And of course hedges have an impact on soil infiltration of water, so they can slow the flow of that water and stop the water getting so waterlogged. And I'm guessing there's going to be some health benefits for the cattle in that as well.
Yeah, I mean, if we're wanting to graze the cows out at grass, you know, because it's for us, especially being organic, but for all grassland farmers really, if the cows can eat that grass, it's a cheapest way for getting that feed into them. You know, it isn't making silage and taking them inside, it's them actually eating it in situ. So we want an area of land, we want fields where the cows can actually go on and graze, you know, where it's not going to be waterlogged.
Yeah.
But if we've got nice small fields, we can move them around that as well. So we really use those, the old boundaries, you know, these ones that I was saying about, you know, the very ancient boundaries, we use those within our rotational grazing system. So those small fields that I used to hate when I was a kid, they're now, you know, really valuable in terms of being able to move the cows around on a real nice rotational grazing system. Really, it's perfect.
Absolutely,
really.
And that's not just improving the health of your cows; that will be improving the health of your soil and the grassland around it.
That's
so
it. Yeah.
Multiple benefits that will stem from that stock management, essentially.
Yeah, keeping the stock moving 1 or 2 days, or 1 or 2 milkings rather, on each area is where they should be, and then they're just moving on, and then they're getting, you know, the field's getting a nice rest. Then it's getting probably 4 weeks rest on average through the year for us, and that means then that's, you know, the grass growth is great. Then you know, it allows all the things like behind us, we've got all the clover there and stuff. So you know, it just allows that to really flourish and freshen up, and then put down deeper roots and improve the soil as well.
And of course, that also means not only do the cows get better pasture to eat, which is obviously a benefit for the farm, but cows obviously aren't, most of our livestock aren't grazing animals exclusively, they're browsing animals.
Yes.
And of course, you know, they get a multitude of diversity if they have access to hedges. So again, I guess the smaller fields will play into the extra food.
It's almost like sort of 3D farming. You know, you've got this nice sort of diverse sward through the middle of the field, which might have, you know, 10, 15 different species in on each mouthful. But then around that field as well with the hedges, you've got all the different species in there as well. So like this one that we're stood next to here, I can see hazel, oak, hawthorn, blackthorn, alder. That looks, I'm trying to think what that one is there, but yeah, we've got a bird cherry we've got there as well. So we've got, there's probably, if I counted, there's probably like 8 or 10 different woody species on this as well.
Yeah.
So if we can provide all those different diverse mix of species in there, every animal is able to choose what it wants when it wants.
So James, on your 20-25 year laying cycle with sort of minimal or no trimming, that creates some big hedges. Do big hedges have any advantages in your system here on the farm? Yeah,
I think, well, one of the main things that isn't often talked about really is the biosecurity. So we've got, so like you say, these big hedges, 20-25 year old, they could be 6-7 metres wide and high, so they're big and they're wide, and all that scrubby stuff up the side as well, like we say. That is providing a fantastic barrier between us and a neighbour. Very important really, especially in a livestock heavy area like we are around here. You know, there's a lot of dairy herds, a lot of beef and sheep farms as well. And if we can create a nice barrier between us and the neighbour, where they can't get nose to nose contact, yes, you could put 2 fences 5 metres apart and nothing in between, but then you'd lose all the benefits that we've already talked about. So one of the additional benefits, and a very important one, is that biosecurity sort of, you know, boundary really, that really, you know, it isn't often talked about, but it's a great way really to keep your farm and your cattle healthy. I think when we're talking about the value of hedgerows to our farm, really, we've got to look into the future as well. Like we talked about climate change and things, so we need those big hedges. If they're not big hedges now, then we need to give them time to grow, or to plant them and give them time to grow. But I think they're really going to be seen as a valuable resource as well for the farm, from people looking in at how we run our businesses. So especially with a dairy farm, it's often we get a bit of hammer sometimes as an industry for not being as environmentally friendly maybe as some other forms of farming. If we can manage our hedgerows better, it gives those milk buyers the confidence really that we are managing the land better for all the other benefits that we've already talked about, to do with the soil, the water, the health of the cattle and everything. So I think, if we start managing them better now, especially if we haven't really done it much before, it's going to give us the confidence to be able to manage them better further in the future as well.
And within them is one of the reasons that there's so much renewed focus on hedges and good hedge management. And we're having we're going through a really interesting time with all sorts of research looking at the carbon that's in a hedge. And the most recent research that I've seen shows that the carbon within a hedge and below a hedge actually stores more carbon than forest per hectare, which is astounding because you wouldn't necessarily know it to look at them, but it's because how much carbon they store underground in their roots, but also in the soil as soil organic carbon. And I think managing hedges in a way that can maintain and keep that there, because as soon as that hedge goes, quite a lot of that carbon in the soil and the roots will soon be lost back to the atmosphere. So it's really important to understand the sort of carbon dynamics of these hedges as well.
I think the important bit about it isn't just the hedge line. It's the scrubby bit. If you look at this bit here behind us, where you've got the blackthorn growing out from underneath that alder, there's also a bit of hawthorn coming in, and that scrubby bit there is storing massive amounts of carbon as well. So yes, the hedge is important, but then either side of that hedge, and that's probably what gives that the density of carbon, isn't it? It's that sort of full sort of pyramid, as it were, isn't it, of organic matter. Yeah. Whereas in a forest, it's
exactly
there's not much underneath generally as well. Yeah. But yeah, that and it's almost. I mean, hedges are really like a woodland edge, and the woodland edges are those most diverse habitats, aren't they, as well?
Absolutely. And the best way that we can rejuvenate hedges, because of course, it's all well and good having a nice big hedge, but at some point they will need rejuvenating to keep them alive, roughly once or twice a generation, we think. And the best way to rejuvenate them and retain the maximum amount of carbon is through laying. So it would be great to hear a little bit about how you manage your hedges on this farm, and where laying fits into that.
Yeah. So this hedge that we've got behind you there, that's about ready for laying now. I can remember laying it, it was probably about 25 years ago, something like that. I can roughly remember where we've laid them in. We don't have a written plan for anything. It's just once it's about ready for doing, then we sort of get into our mind for when we might do that. So this might be in the next year or two when we do this, but we haven't got a rigid plan for doing it. And we very much do. All our hedgerows are in this rotational hedge laying, this traditional sort of 20-25 year system of hedge laying. None of them get flailed. We flail the roadside ones just because we can't really for road safety, but everything else is on this traditional cycle of hedge laying.
So that's going to have a massive reduction in cost as well. You're not paying for them to be flailed.
We're not. No, it's a bit of a labour love for us hedging. We do very much enjoy hedge laying. This one here, that was laid this last year. That was actually a newly planted hedge from where we'd sort of changed how we were managing the field. So we planted a hedge in to provide that like we said, this shade and shelter, but also to be able to move stock a bit easier around. So that was about 12-year-old since we planted that, and then we've just laid it this time, and it's got a real nice sort of thick hedge in there already. And then we'll not touch that again probably for another 20 years now. So we'll just leave it to grow big and wide, and then it'll provide a bit of shelter from the wind coming up this alleyway as well. But yeah, so that one on top of the hill there, that's probably 3 or 4 years since we've done that, and a couple behind us are probably 5 and 6 years. So they quickly become big again. They quickly. Within a year, that's going to be sort of probably get towards 6 foot. Or within another year, about 6 foot high. So you're quickly gaining that benefit back straight away again, really. And we do, it is a bit of a labour of love, but it's something that's really good to do in the winter time.
You call it a labour of love. I call it blood, sweat and tears.
It is probably, yes.
Rewarding. It's really rewarding
is.
work, but it's hard and it's physical work, which also means if you're not doing it in-house, it can be quite expensive. What sort of funding is there to support? I mean, what system do you work? Do you get support to do the laying yourself?
We do. Well, some of it, yeah. So we would probably do it anyways. Do a lot of hedge laying that isn't on any schemes or anything. But where the schemes are available, we do try and get them if we can, either through a stewardship scheme, mid-tier or higher tier, which we've got both on the farm at the moment. But then there is also that option for doing it through a capital-only grant when they open up again. And that's everything from the actual planting to and gapping up to then the hedge laying as well afterwards. So there's money there to be able to pay someone to be able to do it, and it becomes quite a. I think for people starting out in the industry, if they want a job to do through the winter time, you can do hedge laying, and there will be loads of work out there, especially in 3 or 4 years' time when all these newly planted ones that we've done in the last 5-6 years, when they start coming on to be wanted to be laid, there's going to be a lot of stuff, and it's great stuff to learn on this new stuff as well. So I can get in, start early, get a name for yourself in the area, and you'll have work forevermore, I would think.
Fantastic, and it's great that support is now there. I mean, the last few years there's been increasing support, increasing attention towards hedges, and that's not because of all the benefits that we've been talking about to the farm, but largely it's because the government have got a heck of a lot of biodiversity and carbon targets, legally binding targets they need to make. And I think there is now this recognition that hedges are going to be crucial to actually helping our government hit those targets.
Yeah.
So by laying them, by planting them, by making sure that they survive another generation, we are helping the government fit those targets and making sure that they deliver the ecosystem benefits, the benefits to the wider society that we know that they can do. So fantastic benefits all through the farm, but also benefits to people that aren't on your farm as well. So you'll be benefiting people downstream through water infiltration, but also through cleaning the air, storing the carbon, and helping our biodiversity recover as well.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, where these ambitious government targets have come from. But what I love is that the money is there and we can then use that to benefit our farms.
I think we as farmers don't often appreciate how great hedges are, really, because they're always there. They're always in our line of sight. They're always sort of part of our management, but we don't really appreciate how great they are. But I think also we really must appreciate that they do need that management as well. And if there's money there from the government to help us along with that as well, then we get the benefits that way, but we get all the benefits to our own farm and our own farm business as well.